there's a massive crossover between politics and entertainment. This is what I call polytainment. It's a mixture of the two. And the two bright stars of the last 5 years of this peculiar perversion of celebrity are Katie Hopkins and Laurence Fox. Let's start with Katie. Katie rose to fame on The Apprentice, that television programme which seems to have been responsible for all the evils that followed in the world over the next decade.
You're fired.
At first, she became famous for being fun, feisty Katie, the woman who didn't mind what she said and with a flick of her hair was, fuck you, I'm just going to be who I am. And that Katie Hopkins was a fairly bright, fresh product when she first came onto the media scene. And pretty soon, Katie carved a career out of it. In fact, she was smart enough to calculate that the value in being on The Apprentice is not becoming Lord Sugar's apprentice and selling crappy telephones in a warehouse in Slough, but the celebrity it affords. So soon, Katie was appearing on TV, on the daytime TV sofa, putting forth her views on everything from children being fat to what stupid names you might call your kids. She realised that to maintain her media star, she had to keep jacking up the pressure and jacking up the rhetoric. So where she started off being famous for talking about fat people, she went from just saying rude things about other people to some despicable comments about migrants, some of the most desperate people in the world, and she didn't care. And everything culminated the morning after a terrorist attack on the Ariana Grande concert in Manchester. That morning, as Britain and the world reeled from the horror of that event, Katie Hopkins tweeted out that there needed to be a final solution. All that she had built fell away. Nobody in the mainstream was going to employ somebody who had tweeted that. It was pushing it too far. What's worrying is that Hopkins thought it was okay. There was no coming back from it. And she plunged into the alt-right and everything that entailed.
Yeah, you alright? Well, all right. Yeah. Out with sick. I just got shocked.
The rise of the right is a fantastic thing, and I think...
I would add that in a strange way, Katie Hopkins was something of a victim in all of this. Because even as she did it, other people egged her on. It's tempting to sense that there's a good riddance and you deserved an element to Katie Hopkins. But that lets everybody else, including people like me, off the hook. Because Katie Hopkins became the pantomime villain of British politics, and the more everybody booed, the more she played to the crowd. In the process, she enabled an entire rhetoric of hate, and she took hate mainstream to a large extent. Katie Hopkins has left the stage, but a new pantomime villain has arrived. And that man is former actor and failed pop star Laurence Fox.
That's what I get by.
You don't think any of the four women would be?
Oh, it's not about women. Jeepers creepers. Sorry.
So I just was interested in your view.
Let me rewind. Any of the women.
Clearly, as he approached 40, like a lot of actors, he worried about the future and probably measured himself by the rest of his extensive family acting dynasty. And that perhaps is why, like a lot of vaguely famous people in their 40s, he put out a shit album. Now, I don't want to play amateur psychologist, but I think the failure of that fairly shit album might have caused what happened next, because Laurence Fox may not have found an audience for his music, but he did find an audience for his hate. And after he appeared on Question Time earlier this year and made some extremely ill-advised remarks about race, he suddenly found himself a star of the right, the anti-cancel culture, anti-woke right. a group of extremely angry individuals who claim that any decency is an attempt to rewrite history and cancel all that is bad about the world.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors. And that is why Britain is leaving.
Fox himself now seems set on the same path that Katie Hopkins was on, because he clearly loves the limelight, like all actors, and he clearly loves the adoring fan base and the adoring crowds, and he clearly loves the boos and hisses of the people on the other side who, just as they did with Katie Hopkins, are egging him on to ever greater statements. The more people in the centre and on the left shout and yell and scream at the outrages of Laurence Fox, the longer he's relevant. But what's interesting to note is that as soon as Katie Hopkins fell, all of her supporters largely melted away. All of the big names lost interest. And again, while I don't sympathise with any of the statements that Laurence Fox is saying or any of the actions he's taking, perhaps what we're witnessing here is the outward political expression of inner self-hatred and turmoil.